It's my turn. Well, I just want to say welcome and thank you very much for having me. This is an unusual year in that there's all of these Fibre shows that are all virtual. And although it's weird, I am happy to be here and thank you very much for attending and for, and I'm going to say it wrong as well, but our lovely host for hosting us in Fibre Love Affair and all of that fun stuff. Legally, this is being recorded, so anybody who has just joined us, please know that it will go out on the internet afterwards. I believe they put it up on YouTube, so we'll just say all of that right up front. And welcome. I am Dragon Strings, and like we were saying before, I am an indie yarn company, dyer. It's just me, really. And I am on the shores of Georgian Bay, which is out in Ontario, Lake Huron, and a little tiny town called Victoria Harbour. We do have a boat, so I mean, we're not that far away from being a harbor, but it's lovely out here. And I dye knitting yarns. And my whole idea is that I dye the unusual and the one of a kind and the stuff you're not going to find a lot of other places. There's a lot of other dyers out there. They make beautiful things, but as we all know, all dyers have a different palette that they enjoy. And mine tends to be on the neon, black light, and rainbow end of that spectrum, which is very different from Colorist, who we just saw. She does all those lovely tonal colors, and mine is the opposite. So I have a few different things that I could talk about today. And I teach. So I teach dyeing and I teach color work. And so I have about 3 different little presentations in the back of my head that I could start spewing information about. And I'm wondering if there's anybody out there that has any questions about something in particular. The things that I sort of have presentations ready to go are color and color work and working with fades, different dye techniques, and the properties of color and how to get different colors down there. And I'm just wondering if anybody has any one of those that they are more interested in. If you do, please pop it into the chat. I can see it come up on my screen and we can go from there. If not, I'm just going to start with some basic color knowledge so that it will help us for all of the other ones. But if you have any questions, oh, somebody said fades. Okay. So we will go more into fades, color work and fades, color work and fades. Okay, good. So that being said, I'm still going to start with the basics of color because that affects everything else. So when you're talking about color, what laymen talk about and what so a little bit about me, a background, I am a graphic designer, a photographer, and a screen printer. So I lived in the world of color for many, many years before I started doing this. There's color, and then there's the technicalities of color. And so I'm going to pull up, I have an ability to do a yarn close-up here, and I am going to pull up my close-up down here because I'm going to talk about the hue and the tone. And so when we say those things, those are the properties of color. And so when we say the hue, what we are talking about is the color, the blue, the purple, the orange, the red, the actual, the light properties that bounce it back into your eyes and give it that color. Now, so you can have the hue that is blue. Then you can do something called shade and tint and tone. So when you tint, you make the color lighter. You add white, or if you're speaking about dye, you add less dye to the pot so it becomes lighter in value. You can also shade a color. And so when you shade a color, and when I say color, I'm using that interchangeable with hue because that's what most people think of. So you have your hue, you have your tint, and you have your shade, okay? And shade is adding black to a hue. So you take your color and you add black to it. When you add both black and white, it is called toning. And so when you do that to yarn, what ends up happening is this yarn has been dyed with the blue dye from this one, but it has had black added to it, and it is a very pale color. So I added more water to the dye pot. So there was less dye molecules per gram of fiber that I was dyeing. So we have a hue, a tint, a shade, and a tone. And I'm just going to refer to hue and tone from here on out. So I'm just going to refer to these two. So what I say when I talk about hue and tone, and this is important, I promise, to go back to the color work and the fades. This is how you make your color work and your fades work. Your hue is very important. The color that you make something is very important. Almost more important is the tone of your yarn, the amount of black or white that it has in it. Okay? So when you talk about tone and color work, when you're mixing colors together, and I don't have the ability to do this on screen, I'm sorry. A very quick trick that we've all heard is turn it black and white to see if you have enough contrast. The reason that they talk about doing that, and it's why you'll hear that in any color work class, you'll hear turn it black and white, take a picture of your yarn, turn it black and white. What you're actually looking at when you turn something black and white is the amount of black or white in that yarn, as well as the color information. So you're taking the hue out and you're only looking at the tone. And so what happens when you talk about that is when you're trying to get something into a high contrast state, you're trying to get something like my scarf, right? This is black and white. This is as tone different as you can get. Well, this isn't really black. This is a charcoal color, but this is a high tone difference, although there's no hue difference there whatsoever. When you talk about colors, and if you've ever heard color vibrating, that's when you put two colors up to each other and then your eyes kind of go, ooh, I don't think I enjoy that. You'll see it at Christmas a lot. The red and the green that everybody puts together, you look at that transition and it's an unhappy transition. It's called vibration. What's happening when you're talking about those two is you have two colors with the same tone. So although they have different hues, I'll switch over here again. Although these two have different hues, that orange is probably a little bit lighter than the blue. There we go. Although those two colors have different hues, they have similar tones. If we were to turn this black and white, I bet that this red would be a little bit lighter, but not much lighter than that blue. And you would have almost no contrast. So that would work in something that you're striping because there's nice solid changes. But as soon as you have something that has any sort of movement, like color work, like a fair isle, you're going to lose your stitch definition, even though the hues are so drastically different. Our eyes are really good, and they're actually better at picking up changes in light and dark than they are in color, right? That's when you see, when you're in a low light environment, all the colors get faded out because that's a higher level function. The colors are the higher level. It's rods and cones and science stuff, but you'll see more information from the tone. And so when you have two hues that are similar tone, your eyes don't differentiate those as well as they would with two that are higher in contrast tone-wise. So if I took that blue, this blue, and I found, there's one. I found another blue that is lighter, those two would be very lovely in color work because they have that high tone contrast. And so you would see all of the definition, like on my scarf here, transition again here, like on here, actually, hold on. I'll come over to this camera. You can see on my scarf that because I have the high tones, you can see that color work there very well. So when you're talking about fading, this is where this really comes into its own, because you can have, sorry, I keep walking away from my mic. I know I'm doing it. I apologize. You can have, this is a really good example of fading because the hues are different, but the tones are the same. And so what happens is you pull the color from one into the other. And now I have done a fade technique in here. You're 4, 4, 2, 2, 2, 2, 4, 2, whatever transition you decide upon. But because I've kept the tones similar, the color work fades well. And you can see that it works well up there and it works well down here because I've kept the tones. This blue and this gray are very similar in tone. This purple and this blue are very similar in tone. Where I didn't match it is in the middle. And so there's two things going on in the middle there. The reason you can see the striping is because there is a tone and color difference, hue and tone difference. Because I've changed from a blue to a pink, and I did not pull enough of this blue color into this pink, and you do that when you look at colors. So if I was to look at two fade colors, pull these out here. Yarn close up, there we go, transition. So when we look at fades, what I suggest is to make sure that all the yarns have a similar, now this is specifically if you want things to blend together, because our eyes are good at blending things together of the same tone. That's what we went through before. So these three all have the white in them. That's going to help pull everything through because the same color is going from one to the next to the next. It's going to look homogeneous through the whole project. The next thing that helps this is that with these yarns in particular, because these were specifically dyed as a fade, now you don't always have to buy yarns that were specifically dyed to fade together. You can find them. You know, you go in and in different times, you would go into your local yarn shop and you would hold the yarns up to each other and you'd go, okay, the blue that's in this one is in this one. The pink that's in this one is in this one. So the red in here and the green is in this one for sure, right? So I've pulled the green into the red. I've also pulled just the ever so slightest, it's kind of buried in here, tiniest bit of that red into the middle skein. And then from the middle skein, I've taken this dark blue and I've pulled it over here into the purple. And I think there should be buried also, there's a little bit of green in this one as well. It's not coming across on camera at all, but there is some of those speckles down there, I promise. So when you fade those three together, because you've gone back to working with hue and tone, you'll fade well. Okay, so the tone is the more important for fading and for the color work, like strong color work, Fair Isle stuff. When you talk about, now it doesn't have to be, you can change both at the same time. You can. It's harder. And I'm going to hold up a sample that is not my yarn, but that's okay. This is Fleece Artist when she did her Across Canada 150. And I thought that was a good, you know, good cross Canada trip here we're doing. And I have faded 3 of her yarns together that change drastically in both. What you have to figure out when you're doing something like this, when you're changing a fade, very strong tonal change and very strong hue change, is you have to have the same color in both skeins. So going back to what we had down there, this here has these two. It's actually this brownie color. There's a tan color in this one, and it's exactly the same in this ball here. So because that homogeneous one is pulling through both of them, like you're looking at the part where I actually transition there. I also did it ridiculously long over, like, I think I started with 1 row of my transition color and then 5 of my second color, 2 rows of the first color, 4 rows. Like, it was very long that I did that. That's another way you can get it to help, is to stretch out that transition. So it's right there. That tan color is coming and it's pulling across, so you're not seeing the lines. When we come down here, that tan color fades out. It's not in this last ball here, but the color that is that light blue. So this blue color here is in this middle section, and it's also over here. There's less of it in this one. So overall, the whole skein looks darker. It's a darker tone overall, but it has it in both. And that's why you can see the transition there, or not see the transition more accurately. So that's fading, and why we tell you to turn things black and white. That's the magic and the thinking behind that little thing. So somebody's asking, how do I take a class? I teach mostly out in Ontario. I do have private lessons that I do set up, and you can send me an email at yarny@dragonstrings.ca and we can work something out. There'll be Zoom if you've got a particular project that you're working on. And if anybody across Canada, because I do travel, wants to have me in, once the world opens back up, I can come and I can teach, lecture, whatever that you're looking for. Best way to find out about what's coming up is my website, dragonstrings.ca, and also my Instagram is my social media I'm most on. Email is probably the best way to get a hold of me, though. I don't follow the messages very well. Right, so one other thing with the website, because I just mentioned it, there is a code on there right now for all you lovely people who are joining me, of course. There is, I wrote it down somewhere, Fibre Love with a capital F and a capital L. So I will just type that into the chat really quick here. Whoop. And that will just give you 10% off everything in my shop. And the other thing that I am able to offer is $5 shipping. So it's $5 flat rate shipping. So you order 1 skein and you order 5 skeins, it is still $5. If you order less than 4, they will come as a letter mail. There will be no tracking. That's an upcharge. But if you order over 4 skeins, the tracking is automatically included as well. So that's tone and hue. You got to pay attention to both of them. They're what makes color work. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about that and why? Because I just went down a rabbit hole there. I know I did. So it's the difference is important, and obviously pick colors you love, because that is I am not one to say color is not important by any means, but the paying attention to the amount of tone is useful to get the effect that you're looking for. Now, and like we said, you want high contrast, you want to be able to see all your fair isle. Definitely make sure they're different in tone. You want them to fade, maybe put them closer together on that side. Got all these lovely yarns on my table here. So yeah, thank you. What was the pattern in the Fleece Artist Parks that you showed? Ooh, that is a fantastic question. That sample is very old. It is available on my Ravelry. So I am acid freeze on Ravelry, and all my store samples are available as projects on there. So please, you know, stalk me on Ravelry and find it on there. I believe it is called Find Your Path, but I don't remember. And I meant to look it up and I didn't, and I apologize. This one is from the Cabin Fevers book, and it is from their Need a Circular Yoke book. And they are a lovely duo trio out in Ontario. And they publish patterns that are more like recipes. So I got to choose my neckline, my sleeve style, my amount of ease, and my shaping in this particular garment. My RAV name is Acid Freeze. I will type that into the chat here. There we go. And I apologize for not having that. I really should have prepared that better. I just pulled that out at the last minute because it was a great example of fade. Do you have a link for the pullover shirt pattern? That I do not have a link. Oh, thank you very much, Melanie, for pulling that up. It is Cabin Fever Need a Circular Yoke. And that's a book that you can publish, but it is a how-to guide. So yeah. And the ladies who do that book, Deb and Lynn, are fantastic people as well. I teach and talk to them quite often. Lynn owns Shellridge Yarns, and Deb and Lynn both own Cabin Fever Yarns. So they're a great duo out here. Okay. So I do ship to the US. So US is $15 flat rate shipping. I can ship anywhere in the world. If you're outside of Canada or the US, it is going to be very variable right now. Unfortunately, I cannot seem to get anybody to commit to any sort of stability in overseas shipping, but I do ship overseas. Just shoot me an email and I will find a carrier for that. US is just $15. It's going to go out part of the Canada Post United Postal Service system. So heads up that shipping times might be a little bit delayed at the moment, although they seem to be working out the issues there. Looks like things are about 3 weeks right now. So yeah, and it's $15 to US, $5 to Canada. I should have been clearer on that. And yeah, so, and that coupon code will work as well, the Fibre Love on there. So what else am I going to talk about? What are we at for time-wise here? Okay. That's color, that's dye techniques, it's working with variegated fades. Oh, one other thing, when you're talking about fading, the techniques that work the best for fading are not solids. And that's why you see a lot of fades working with indie dyers, because indie dyers, I mean, as much as we try, a solid is never a solid. It is always a tonal. I mean, we just do not have the equipment to make the yarns uniform as a rule. There are indie dyers out there that specialize in that. I am not one of them. I don't even like dyeing the same thing twice. So when you're looking at colors from indie dyers, you can do it with speckles or with, so you can have your speckles, and that's why fades use speckles, because speckles pull across really well. So these two yarns here, let's transition this so we can actually see. So although those two there have very different colors, they would actually fade fairly well. Paint the Town, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. That is the name of the shawl that she had. She post-stocked me on Ravelry and found it. So thank you very much. Right, so these two would fade because the colors of the speckles are being pulled across. So this dark blue in here is in this skein here as well. And the green is the same speckle in here. So you can do it with different dye techniques like that as well. So if you have one that's like highly speckled, even though these look very different, they would fade fairly well. The other thing that's going to help these two fade is the white color coming through. And if you turn them to black and white, although this would be very dark, the rest of the skein is fairly light in tone. So indie dyers work really well for fades. And I'm getting entirely too much yarn under my table. It doesn't fit anymore. So, what else was I gonna? Oh, okay. So we talked about that. We talked about contrasting colors. These two I will show as examples of contrasting colors, because this is a part of a collective that I'm out here in, well, it started in Ontario. It is actually international at this point. It's called If You Want to Be a Unicorn, Be a Freaking Unicorn. And the idea is that we have a group of makers. So it's not just dyers. There's bag makers, there's artists who specialize in fleece, there's charm makers, there's all sorts of people. There's probably about 40 people who have signed up already. The idea is that on May 1st through 24th, we all release a colorway or a special collection of some sort that is unicorn themed. And that is as close to a description as we're going to get, because those are all over the map. And then part of the proceeds of that for indie dyers, it is $5 a skein. For makers of small goods, it is 20% of the purchase price, goes to help the vulnerable youth in your community and the LBT. Oh my goodness, LGBTQ plus community. I always screw up that order. I'm sorry. And my local charity, and it is a charity of the Maker's Choice in their community. So the people that I've partnered with is the Gilbert Center in Barrie, Ontario, and they were originally developed as an AIDS foundation, however, have transitioned over to help everybody in the community, just a general resource in the area. And these, and I will do this here, are my If You Want to Be a Unicorn colorway. So I have a bigger, better example of these guys, don't worry. So I have, because I was not seeing a lot of dark, and not everybody wants to be a bright rainbow, I came up with the idea of light and dark, light side, dark side. And both of these yarns are part of my specialty, and they glow under black light. So they pair well because the black is technically a tone of the light. So I dyed these both in this light colorway, and then I put black over top of this one. So you can see that the color in there, that pink is in there, they would fade well. You can see that they look fairly strong as a contrast. And so when you do color work with them, because of course that's what I have to try and do, they do show up. You do lose some of the detail. I mean, you're losing some of it in here where the light and dark aren't quite strong enough, but they do show up. So that's my contribution. That's the If You Want to Be a Unicorn, Be a Freaking Unicorn. Please follow them on Instagram, and there's a website set up as well. All the makers' products, not just mine, will go live May 1st and will be available from May 1st to 24th. That's it. When we wrap it up, we donate to our cause. And the idea is that you buy in May to knit in June. And so those are my unicorn colors. And they don't really have more fancy names than if you want to be a freaking unicorn light. And if you want to be a unicorn, be a freaking unicorn dark, because that's simple. And those are my yarns there. So that's a special new thing that's happening. And yeah, hope everybody can join in with my yarns, local makers, whoever. Please support, and at least if you don't financially support, go and click all the love buttons, because it's a great initiative. And they're doing good work. So does anybody have any questions about anything that I have rambled on for? There's unicorns, there's dye colors, and there's fades. So, fleece artist. Okay. What is the shawl you have on? Names for the yarns, your own. Yes, shine through. Thank you. Melanie is on the ball. Thank you so much. Shine Through by Monster Knits. I did know this one. And yarns for the name, your own. The Be a Freaking Unicorn ones is part of the collective. That is what they came up with for the name. And their Instagram is at Be a Freaking Unicorn. And their website is beafreakingunicorn.ca. Apologize. And the yarns, names for the yarns, my own. So the rest of my yarns are named crazily. I guess I should explain a little bit. If you go on my site, what's happening there, you'll see two sections to my site. You'll see Make Me Dye, which is a list of about 20 colors that I can dye fairly consistently, and you can get those on any base you want in any quantity you want. So if you want, 15 of this one, you go on the Make Me Dye, you place an order there, and they will come to your door in about 3 to 4 weeks, because it takes me a little while, because I create specifically for you on that side of the site. The other side of the site is the WYSIWYG site, because I am a child of the 90s and I am a geek. And so what you see is what you get. Those are the exact yarns you see behind me. So I have already dyed them and they are up on the site. Those ones are one of a kind. They are exactly that. What you see is what you get. Most of the yarns that you're seeing here that I've pulled out to show you, those are up on the site. You can purchase them immediately. They'll go out probably within 48 hours, but I cannot recreate them. So they are what you see, what you get. That's where I get to have my creativity, and I get to play in the dye pots and just, throw color and see what happens. And sometimes it doesn't work, and that's when I have a run of black. Because if a color thing doesn't work, you can always over dye it black. So, but those ones are available as well. And then the Make Me Dyes are the ones that are always available. I have a section there for stockists. If anybody is wondering if their local yarn shop or if they own a yarn shop can get in there, I am taking wholesale orders. So there's a section on the website for those guys. There is a section for collaborators. If you have a pattern that you are featuring my yarn in, please shoot me a collaborator email on the site, and they will come to me and I will feature you in my Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And there is also a collaborator kickback program, kind of like an affiliate program, where if you use your links and people buy yarn, then you'll get special stuff at the back end for that. We're just trying it out. The website is fairly new. If you run into any hinks, jinx, and all that kind of stuff, please let me know. But those are the two sides of the site. And thank you for the beautiful yarn comment. So, and Be a Freaking Unicorn. Yes, somebody linked to the site there. It is a great initiative. So, don't really have too much more to say. Does anybody have anything that they're looking to see, or color questions or anything like that that they're wondering about? The eye, great color. What is your favorite color at this time? Thank you for the color comment. Favorite color? Ooh, probably the Be a Freaking Unicorn, because it's the newest one I did. But also the Always, I guess, Roy's in the Clouds. This is my best-selling yarn as well. This is a space-dyed yarn with a lovely rainbow on there. So, and it works out so that you just get a pop of color every so often. But because I was excited about doing the pop of color that was probably about 4 or 5 stitches long, I went, I wonder if I can get that down. I wonder if I can get shorter pops of color. And so I have been experimenting, and last year-ish, just before everything went sideways, I came up with Aurora Borealis. And this is my other favorite color at the moment, because this is sort of the same idea as Roy, but darker and smaller. And so I will switch over to this camera here for a second. And those little pieces there, and there is a whole rainbow in there, it's just all spread out. So those are incredibly small. They're probably about 1 centimeter long. It's done with a technique called reverse resisting. I'm just grabbing my sample because I have one. And what ends up happening with that yarn is, it's maybe not going to come across on camera very well. Let's do it on this one. They end up being 1 stitch. So you get a field of the dark with 1 stitch of those other colors. And it looks like 80 sprinkles. And the thing that I am playing with now is making all of those sprinkles glow under blacklight, because that is my new jam as well. And I really like things that not fluoresce, because that's very, very, very difficult to do in yarn, like glow in the dark, but having them pop in the 80s, where they just, you get the black light and your college dorm, and I apparently never outgrew that aesthetic, so I'm still jammed to that, and it's pretty cool. I can't show it on camera, but if you go on my website, a lot of my yarns, there's a collection of them, or the individual yarns themselves will have a black light photo, and you'll see what they do when you go glow bowling or have a rave in your house. And they're fun. So those dyes are fairly new as well. Fireside, a common blend you make. Probably not, considering I'm not entirely sure which one that is. And that is something you will find with the WYSIWYGs. I do so many of them. I am probably older than you think I am. I do so many yarns that are one of a kind that the names, they all come from basically what's in my ears. I'm listening to podcasts, or I'm listening to YouTube, or I'm listening to audiobooks, and it'll be talking about something, and I have it. And it's dark rust. Without a picture, I'm lost. I'm just as lost as anybody else, because those yarns got labeled when they got labeled, but they are one of thousands that I have created. And I love all my yarns, but I don't remember them all. So time to pick. Yes, send me a picture. I can create yarns that I have created before, usually to a fairly accurate degree. So if you were looking for me to recreate something, I can do that as well. And how did I start in this career? I was in the corporate world. I mentioned that I was a graphic designer. I did corporate graphic design for approximately 10 years, and I loved it, but got burnt out. It is such a competitive market. And though I was in an in-house design position, it was just too much. And I have been knitting since the time I was about 17. And I've always loved fiber and I've always loved color. And I went, I wonder. And so I started throwing yarn and color in the same pot, and that's what happened. And I liked it. So I continued. And that was about 6 years ago. Actually, it was longer than that I started experimenting. 6 years ago was when I went full-time with Dragon Strings. And I'm still learning. I'm still throwing color in pots. And that's why I love the WYSIWYG section of the site, because that's where you'll see those weird experiments that may or may not make it into the permanent list of colors. More often than not, they don't. They're lovely colors, but they're too intensive, or they're my jam, but there's not very many people like me out there. And so that's my story. I fell into it and loved it. I knew I wanted to dye after I took my first dye course. So I took a course with Lynn, who I was speaking about from Shellridge Yarns. And by the time I finished that course, I said, I love this. I want to do this more. This is my jam. This is my screen printing background coming in and all that kind of stuff. So it was fun. It is fun. And I have a lot of fun in the studio. What book am I reading at the moment? I'm curious. I am reading Grunt, I think is the one. It's Mary Roach, and she does a whole series of one. I wanted to die. Yes, I want to die every single day. Anyways, Mary Roach does a whole series of books, and they are, she's looking into the different parts of the world that are not super knowledgeable. She had one called Stiff, and then this one is Grunt, which is all about the military. And other than that, I listen to a lot of fantasy, like tons. That would be why my company is called Dragon Strings. And all of my yarn bases are based off of mythological creatures. So we have Sleipnir, which is Odin's 8-legged horse, because it has 8 strands. It is an actual 8-ply yarn, 2-step twist process that is very cool. Actually, let's go over that. Why not? So Sleipnir is my go-to sock base. And the reason that I say it is my rock star of a yarn is that it has 4 2-ply yarns. So those of you who are spinners can see that I have 4 plies, but everybody can see that. You don't have to be a spinner. But the unusual thing about this is that each one of these plies is actually made up of 2 plies itself. Doesn't quite come across on camera, but that is 2 individual plies there. And with the 2-step twist process, what ends up happening is the yarn is very, I call it the smoosh factor, because we can't go into booths and you can't smoosh this, but this yarn is very smooshy. It is a very round yarn. Yeah, cabled 8-ply is amazing, yes. And it has great stiff definition. And the other thing that it has is great wearability, because the tighter your twist in yarn, the more durable your yarn is. That's why, like Regia and all those commercial sock yarns, they're twisted and they wear like crazy, but they're not super soft, because the more twist that you put in yarn, the harder the yarn. You lose the squish. So with doing the 2-step process, you keep the bounce and the smoosh, 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 and you still get the twist in there, to get the durability. So that's my Slipknot base. That's my you know, rock solid. And the other lovely thing about this particular one is it is machine washable. The laundry monsters do not enjoy eating and snacking on this yarn. It can go in the washing machine, no problem. I would still lay flat to dry, but if they get bundled up with your pants, they're fine. It's the only yarn I have that I will say that about, but that's fine. And that's why I adore that yarn. The other yarns that I have great uses for what they're used for. My shawl is made out of the Amarak, and it has got cashmere in it, and it is so smooshy. So it is just smooshy, smoosh. Other ones, I have a Luna, which is a single ply, and Luna is actually a sun goddess. So that is hers, and that is 100% superwash merino. There is no silk in there, even though you may think there is, because this particular way this one is spun, it almost has a luminescence to it. I have, now I'm just naming bases. Oh, the fun ones that I have, I guess, are these guys came in last year, and these are my 2 new Luxe bases. And when I say Luxe, I mean I never want to stop squishing these yarns. They are amazing. This particular one here is called Naga. I will transition so we can look at the pretty yarns. This one is a yak and silk. And the shimmer on the sky, because it is 50% silk, is incredibly luscious. These come in 50-gram skeins. And they are just, the drape that you get because of the silk and the yak is amazing. And the other luxury base that I just got, because I'm allergic to mohair, so you won't find any bases with mohair because I can't work with them. So the popularity of all of the fuzzy sweaters was driving me nuts, and I wanted to knit with them. So I came across this base, which is a 74% baby Surrey alpaca and 20% mulberry silk. And it is just as fluffy as most of those mohairs. You can see the fluff in there, but the silk is the strong core. And so it can be held and used in place of mohair, pretty much 1 for 1 if it calls for a mohair lace. And I'm having a lot of fun getting some unusual colors on this base because there's not a ton of neon fuzzy yarns out there. And the way that the dyes react is quite amusing to me. This one in particular really glows under black light. If you look on the site, that colorway, which is, it's a donut, just glows under the black light. It's pretty fun. And those are my 2 newest ones. So yeah. I have thicker yarns as well. I have a worsted weight, which is hiding up here, called Fairy Wrap. It's just a great 100% superwash merino, and then there's a DK as well that is sort of its baby sister, 100% super weight, and it's called Pixie Wrap. So those 2 go sort of hand in hand, whether you're looking for the double knitting or the worsted weight. And then I have my cashmeres. I have and this is my naked stuff. Oh, and this guy, he's fun too. This is a yak sock yarn. It's called Yakshaw. Have you got any samples in the Surrey blend? Not on me. No, it is new enough that I do not have any samples right now. I apologize. The new bases, you can find them under the Make Me Dye. They're always there, and you can get all those colors. And if not in the WYSIWYG, they'll be under their individual bases. The Surrey is called Ikiko, and the yak and silk is called naga. So just look them up by the base. They're in the top thing. They're both a fingering weight yarn. This is a yak nylon and merino blend for socks, and it has amazing stitch definition. That one's yak shawl. I don't have a ton of this. I'm not even sure there's any up on the site other than in the Make Me Dye section. And then my cashmeres. That's what my shawl's made out of. So this is a merino nylon cashmere blend that has smoosh. And I wish you guys could all see this and feel this. And if you come to my booth and you see me, there's usually about 4 of us in there. I have my gang and they're amazing. And they will literally huck yarn at people and you have to catch it and squish it because that's what I think everybody needs to do. And some of these bases are just, they are meant to be felt. And I want you guys to feel them. And I wish you could. So, I mean, me squishing things on camera is not really going to help, but pet the yak, come pet the yak. Someday soon. So, yeah. Is there any? Still pretty satisfying. I'm one of those AMSR where I squish, squish, squish. Yak is beautiful. I love working with yak. That's why I have brought it in the 2 bases. It is a fairly amazing fiber. It's warmer than wool. It's about 30% warmer than wool, which is why I like it as a blend. The 50-50 yak silk, the nagas, these guys, because they have the silk in them, they actually end up being a reasonable temperature. And the yak sock yarn, because it is such a low yak content, there's only 10% yak in there, they make it so you can wear them. Because I have a couple of blends that I was testing out that are higher, and I love the socks that I made, but I can wear them 2 days a year, and I live in Canada. They are so warm. So with the silk, this one in particular, the silk is such a cooling fabric that these skeins, they're nice and they work both in the warmer place and the cooler, not cooler, but you can use them in the cooler temperatures, the warmer socks. Yes, if you have cold feet, yak is your baby. It is such a warming fabric. Wool socks in general help, but the yak is really a blend that is warm. It's warm. Wool hats, I have wool mittens, yak mittens, I mean, because it is such a warming fabric. Why the interest in blacklight with your colors? I just never grew up. I think everybody goes through that phase when you're, 13 and you have the black light in the college dorm and the lava lamps. And yeah, I still have the lava lamps and I still have the black lights, and that's just me. And it's interesting in fabric to see it. And it's kind of like having a little hidden secret. And I like things that they have 2 sides to them. And that's why I did the dark and the light unicorns, because duality is, in life, there is duality, there's light and dark. And the black light is just that hidden side of me that I may dress up and pretend to be an adult. And then you get to know me. And I'm not. I am so not. I have no excuses. I don't even have kids. I just never grew up. So. And I think we're coming to the end here of our hour. So I will thank everybody one more time, and I will give you your bingo word, because we all have bingos. And they've given me the word backlight, B-A-C-K light, as opposed to black light, but it is backlight. And that is your bingo word from me. And website, was a typo or autocorrect? Oh, so it was supposed to be blacklight. Okay, I wasn't sure. Maybe you'll take both. But that's your bingo word. The website that I can be found, dragonstrings.ca. My Instagram account is dragon_strings. And my Facebook is dragon_strings. And again, website, and you can contact me on there. You can also contact me via my email address, yarny@dragonstrings.ca. If you have any custom anything or anything you want to talk about, I'm happy to do all of that stuff. $5 shipping. Oh, and Fibre Love on the website will give you 10% off for a week, only for 1 week, till next Saturday. Thank you so much, Melanie, for putting all my links in there. That you are so handy. And does anybody have any other questions or anything that you're, before I go, is any last thoughts or anything kicking around? What was the bingo word? Bingo word is backlight. So BACKLIGHT. Thank you. Thank you. I hope I gave you guys some value, and I will squish, 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 squish. And I'll see you guys soon for squishing later.